All right. Welcome to the Domestic
Right,
Draft Podcast. I'm
man.
Evan Bierman here with Dan Slowick. Dan, it's a very special episode. Of course, we had last week off. If you notice, we didn't have an episode put out. So we got 2 weeks worth of NFL free agency moves and big offseason signings, as well as March Madness coming up.
It's a good time.
We've got opening day just around the corner. So we got a lot to talk about today. I'm excited to get into it, but first, why don't you kick it off with what you're drinking?
Yeah, I'm excited too. It's been kind of like a dead period for sports fans, and now it's kind of all ramping up. But the beer I have for the show today, it's a collaboration beer with a brewery that's from Torrance area, which is kind of south of LA. It's actually where right outside where my older brother kind of just moved, so it's like right in that neck of the woods, right by Rancho Palos Verdes. But the brewery is called Smog City, and they did the collaboration with Pizza Port here in San Diego. And the beer in which they collaborated on is called Burn Out the Day. It's an IPA. And so they team up in the way they go ahead and describe this beer. It sounds awesome. It tastes pretty good right off, but a little hoppy. But it's a punchy IPA. They got aromatics of lemongrass, tropical pineapple, mango bolstered by citrusy lime and grapefruit. Light body, snappy bitterness, and it makes it for the perfect beer. This is such like a brag on SoCal. Perfect beer for those nice sunny December days in beautiful sunny Southern California. So yeah, it's pretty good. It gets a pretty good ranking as well. Great on Untapped. It's got a 3.8 on Untapped, but this is predominantly a Smog City beer. So I'm going to focus on Smog City and talk about that brewery a little bit. So Smog City, it's a husband and wife who opened up their doors in around 2011. It's Jonathan and Lori Porter. And what they did is Jonathan has been like a brewer. He's a master brewer. He's been brewing since 2006. And he was working at this company called Tustin Brewing Company. And he was their head brewer. And in 2011, they started to use their equipment, but to brew their own beer. And then to kind of outsource it and sell it to restaurants and distribute it that way. And, by the end of the year, they brewed and distributed about like 240 barrels in their first year. And people were really liking their beer. They were liking their flavors. So that next year, they went ahead and kind of opened up their own tap room. I think they got like 4 tap rooms by now. It's a really popular brewery up in LA area. So if you're up over there and you say Smog City, most everybody who's in the beer scene will know them. And it's a cool collaboration. When I read the name of the beer, Burn Out the Day, I immediately think of the song like Burn Out the Day, Burn Out the Nights. You know that one?
No, I don't. You think that's what they're going for?
I think so. Yeah. But it's a good beer. What do you got?
Nice. So today I'm doing Lagunitas. I have their IPNA.
You know the song. I'm burning for you.
I don't think so. Maybe it's just the way you're singing it, Dan. I don't know it. I don't know it.
Okay.
But no, I'm doing Lagunitas IPNA. And Lagunitas, to me, I always think of Chicago. I associate it with Chicago, just being from here. Actually, it was founded in Petaluma, California back in 1993. It's actually now a subsidiary of Heineken too. But, to take you back to 1993, Tony McGee founded the brewery in Lagunitas, California. A year later, moved it to Petaluma and quickly outgrew the rural West Marin location. After that, they became one of the fastest growing craft breweries in the United States. And then in 2012, they began construction of a satellite brewery in the North Lawndale neighborhood of Chicago. That brewery space was actually a space owned by a film studio, Cinespace, for 20 years. And so that's pretty cool, moving into that kind of industrial space. I know you've been there too, Dan. It's just a really awesome space when you walk in there in Chicago. There's an on-premises tap room that they opened a few months later. But then in 2015, Heineken acquired a 50% stake in Lagunitas. It enabled them to expand globally. And then, because they were more than 25% owned by Heineken, they no longer met the Brewers Association of a Craft Brewery. And actually in 2017, Heineken purchased the rest of Lagunitas. So now they are the sole owner of it. But but I still look at Lagunitas as a craft beer. You know, it's one of probably the first craft beers that a lot of people grab because it's so readily available. But, you know, today's day and age, the non-alcoholic beer is all the rage, Dan. And the
Blowing up.
IPNA that I have here is less than 0.5% alcohol, which is the definition of a non-alcoholic beer. For it to be zero alcohol, it's alcohol-free beer, but this is a non-alcoholic. It's less than 0.5%. Lagunitas says this beer took over a year to make, R&D wise, and they used a lot of the same ingredients that they use in their highly balanced IPA. So I think that was the goal. That's why it took them so long. They use the same hops, malt, yeast, water, and dry hopped it with Mosaic and Citra hops. It's good. I can definitely tell that this is non-alcoholic. You know,
Right.
you put them side by side. Like I'm picking the one that's alcoholic every time, just flavor wise. But it is good. I could see the appeal to this for sure.
Have you had like some of? I know the Athletic is the one I've been
I was
drinking
gonna
all the time out here. Have you had
Yeah,
some
I
of
was
that
going to
yet?
say Athletics is the number one selling non-alcoholic beer, and they've exploded. But non-alcoholic beer in general has exploded between 2020 and 2023. That percentage of people that drank non-alcoholic beer was 0.6% in 2020. 2023, it's at 5.2%. So that's a 766% increase in just 3 years. It just exploded. And I don't know if it was the pandemic or if it's younger generations who have really adopted non-alcoholic beer in general.
Mhm.
But it's really been blowing up, and we're seeing breweries now open up that are non-alcoholic breweries. And so I just wanted to kind of give a little bit of background on how the process works, because you're using all the same ingredients.
Right.
How are they making non-alcoholic beer? And really the most common way to do it is to add water or steam to the liquid and boil it under pressure. So what happens is that releases the alcohol into vapor. So it's like condensation. The alcohol
Mhm.
comes out via the condensation, where it's collected then and then, disposed of. And so then the remaining liquid is then sold as non-alcoholic beer. So they can get it down to, really the same kind of beer with the same ingredients, just without the alcohol. So I thought that was interesting, just understanding the process a little bit. But this doesn't get that great of an Untapped score,
Mhm.
2.96, but it is, good. It's nice to keep me a little bit sober here when we have so much to talk about too.
Yeah.
So many big things happening for the Bears. And the number one thing we got to talk about right off the bat is Justin Fields getting traded, Dan. What did you think
Yeah.
about this trade? I mean, I know you and I have been talking about it for seems like a year.
Mhm.
So it finally happened. We have the conclusion. 6th-round pick, conditional 4th-round pick based on his playing time. What do you think of the return, and what do you think of the landing spot?
Yeah, it was a long wait, and it was just a lot of back and forth of what's going to happen. And, just Bears fans at the start of it, right? We're like, oh, we got to get, at least a 1st-round pick, like try to get 2 1st-round picks for him. Like everyone's going to want Justin Fields. And, we were kind of a little bit of, pessimists on the evaluation of Justin Fields and thinking that, he kind of showed what he is, and he's kind of a project and needs a lot of work, but a hell of an athlete. So a team might be willing to take a risk on him. And then Poles comes out and says, I want to do right by Justin. I want to make sure that he's going to a place that he wants to go, that he's comfortable. So I think that had something to do with it. Obviously, the longer it went out and the more quarterbacks got signed, I think you realize where the market was with him and where the other NFL teams view him as, which is possibly a backup, a stopgap year to maybe ride the bench and learn a little bit, and then, become a starting quarterback in 2025, 26. So I'm not too surprised by it. I think the bar was, or the floor, I think what Poles wanted was a 4th-round pick, but again, to do right by Justin. So he wanted to go to Pittsburgh, be with Mike Tomlin, be in an environment and a franchise that is just historically successful and ran properly and ran as winners. And he goes there with, Russell Wilson there in charge. So, I mean, a Super Bowl quarterback, a veteran, somebody who has similar stylistics in their play to learn from. So I think it's an all-around good trade. I would have liked a higher draft capital for sure. I think that, that compensation of a 6th round, but conditional on 4th if he plays more than 51% of the snaps is pretty much what Ryan Poles is betting on. Is that Wilson might get hurt, or he might just continue to kind of decline, and Fields' second half of the season might take over. So I think Poles is gambling on that, and he really wants the 4th round pick. If it turns out to be a fourth round pick, and Fields is happy and successful but not too good, that he's making all Bears fans cry, that he's no longer on their team, I think it's a win-win for everyone involved. It had to happen. I think a lot of people too. I don't know if you're hearing this, or like, why couldn't they keep Fields and draft Caleb and sit Caleb for a little bit and have Fields continue to play? I'm just not sure that works. I think you need to allow your new first overall pick some time to become the franchise quarterback, and really take over as that franchise quarterback and as that star. So I don't know. I think it was a good deal. What about you? I was kind of rambling there a little bit and just continuing to go over, the deal, but I thought it was like, and they did it on St. Patrick's Day when they announced it. So like the whole city's out at a bar drinking. The Bears announced this trade, and everyone kind of like sees it on their phone and like, continues with their like party, or maybe they divulge into a conversation there at their party about was it the right thing or not. But I don't know.
I think everybody was. Yeah, I think everybody was underwhelmed seeing that. There was a fan base that was completely split, I think, on this. I would say it was 50-50, right? Anybody that you talk to, you have no idea. Are they pro Fields, or are they pro let's draft somebody new? You just never knew with anybody because it was that split. And so I think for everybody, though, we can kind of look at this as they didn't get much for him,
No, yeah.
Respective to a lot of other quarterbacks that have been traded.
I think a lot of Bears
Lance
fans
got traded for a 4th round pick. Sam Darnold got traded for a 2 and a 4. A lot of guys who had an opportunity but still seem like they have it in the tank. They're still young. They're a project, like you said. Those guys are going for still decent draft capital because it's a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd thought, maybe they're going to get a 2. And then a little bit of time goes by and it's like, all right, are they going to get a 3? Maybe a 4? Like a 4? I don't know. Like, is that even really worth it? Right? Just keep him as a backup, see if you can make this whole thing work. But, a 6th round pick, and it's not even this year's 6th round pick, it's next year's. And everybody knows, next year's picks are not worth as much as this year. So it's really not much. It's essentially just to get him off the team and put him in a good spot for himself going forward, give him another opportunity. Respective to some of the other offers that he said, there was 3 other teams that were involved, and nobody's come out and said who those teams were, but there was at least one offer that they said was better than what he took, but it was from a team who had an established veteran highly paid quarterback. He would have been firmly a backup at that spot, and it would have taken him a long time to get back into that limelight, QB1 spot where the Steelers, his team wanted him to go there. And I just got to look at, and I know this doesn't matter at all in the grand scheme of things, but how much all the players and former players and people just really backed this guy because he's seemingly such a great person and a great teammate and a great leader and all that. I feel like that played into a lot of the fact that we couldn't keep him as a backup because the locker room would have been so divided on it. And I also feel like the whole we need to do right by him thing was, number one, a nod to Justin as a thank you, like for, being the QB for Chicago for as long as he did. But Poles ultimately didn't owe him anything. He didn't draft the guy. He didn't bring him into this, right? He took over Justin Fields, took over the team when Justin Fields was on it. But it's good PR, and it's good for all the other players to see,
is how we run our ship. Yeah.
Right. Like somebody like Cole Kmet, I think, went on, did an interview the next day and was like, I'm hoping for the best for him. And, players really cared where he was going to go to. So I think, that was just a good thing to do. I think he could have got more for sure, but
Yeah, but
You
I
know?
mean, we've seen it in sports, right? Like, yeah, the whole locker room loved him. He's such a good guy, but the people who win are often like, hated by their teammates because they're psychos. That they're pushing their team. They're not making anyone comfortable, kind of thing.
Hmm.
That might be like a meatball take, but like the people who are arguing like, well, he had the locker room, so you had to keep him. That's the dumbest argument I've ever heard. Like,
Yeah.
a good locker room is a winning locker room. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
you could have you have the best locker room in the world, but you're not winning games, and the coach just looks like an idiot. He's like, "Well, we got a great locker room." It's like, you're fired. All that we care about is wins and losses, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, great locker room, great guy, like does charities, says all the right things, carries himself like the right way. But I just
Hmm.
like that we have direction. It's time to move on. It's over. He's
Yeah.
traded. It's going to be the same thing though. Like, I know Bears fans still talk about Trubisky. It's been years. They're still going to talk about Fields. I hope that stops because we're going to draft Caleb Williams and he's going to be the future. And I think it's some of the most exciting times in our lifetime as a Bears fan right now. We could start
Yeah.
looking at some of the other acquisitions like Ryan Poles right now, in my opinion. He's had some mistakes in the past. Obviously, everyone points out, the Chase Claypool trade. But this offseason, he is crushing it. I feel like he kind of lined up what he wanted to do, and he's methodically doing it. He's taking his time, and he's surprising us a little bit. I think the big surprise was Keenan Allen.
Yeah.
Kind of out of nowhere, we announced it was at nighttime. I think it was around like midnight that the Bears acquire Keenan Allen for a 4th-round pick from the LA Chargers. That's crazy good.
Yeah.
That's some of the best receivers we've had in a long time.
Yeah. He was the best receiver in the NFL, I think, up until he got injured in week 13 of last year. So he
Career
still has a
year,
lot
yeah.
left in the tank. And this trade was before the Fields trade, even too. So I think, whether you were hoping for Fields to stick around or for us to move on from him, you get Keenan Allen. You got to be excited about that. The wide receiver core is now stacked. 2 number ones, Keenan Allen and DJ Moore. And, they could go into this draft and potentially take somebody else with that
Right.
9 pick. So
And the
you've
reason
got
they can
options
do
there.
that, is some of the other acquisitions that Poles has won and made. One of them being locking down Jalen Johnson. So the secondary set, signed Kevin Byard as the other safety. All
Mm-hmm.
the positions in the secondary are set. Linebackers are set. So he's kind of just going down. All right, done. D line, have some positions. O line, we signed a lot of people here in the offseason. We could talk about them in a minute. We got running backs, possibly tight end, but now we're setting ourselves up where it's like the draft is almost a luxury to where we can draft position of need instead of best player at or best player available, which I feel like we've been doing. You know what I mean? So we
Yeah,
kind
and
of have that
it's
luxury where
such a
we could,
huge turnaround from,
yeah,
where we were 2 years ago. This offseason, I think he's done a great job of bringing in guys that have a lot of experience. Gerald Everett is somebody who's been on quite a few teams, has really good ties with Shane Waldron. You know, he's going to be somebody that's awesome, I think, behind Cole Kmet. Guy can catch passes for sure. So that's fantastic that you've got 2 tight ends lined up. Waldron likes to use 2 tight ends, so you got both of those. Picked up DeAndre Swift. Pretty good deal for DeAndre Swift. I think it was about 8 million. It's not bad.
yeah,
That's not
3
bad
years,
at all.
24 million.
Yeah, had his best season of his career last year with the Eagles. And you brought up the O line. We lost starting center, so there was an obvious hole there. But Poles, made a trade
Mm-hmm.
and also signed Coleman Shelton, who
Mm-hmm.
started every game at center for the Rams last year. He was an undrafted free agent in 2018, but he's had a lot of playing times. Experienced player, played all last year. He's definitely somebody that could step in right away. You got a couple guys there now with him and Bates, who they traded for, that could fill that spot. And so, they're both on cheap deals too. So cheap linemen are hard to find. And I think that's credit to Poles for finding a couple really good players that can fill in there and still afford you the option to draft one. If somebody like Joe Alt, you like them at 9, or, Olu Fashanu
Mm-hmm.
is there and you really want to grab, a tackle or something. I mean, there's still a lot of options there. They have at O-line. They could take a receiver like we just talked about. D line. I think there's a little bit of work there that they might need, but you know, they
It's
also don't have a
shaping
lot of
up.
picks
It's
in this
shaping
draft.
up.
So
It's
they only
shaping
have, I
up.
think, 5 picks now in the draft after the trade
Uh-huh.
to acquire Keenan Allen. So they could also trade back. And I think any one of those options to me is 100% fine because, like you said, a lot of the positions are set. You're going to have Caleb Williams or, another quarterback walk
You're
into
gonna have
probably the
Caleb Williams.
best. I hope so. But you're going to have him walking into the best situation a rookie quarterback has probably ever
What
walked into. I can't even
percentage?
think of, another
No, it's the best. What percentage
yeah,
would you say Caleb Williams is the number 1 pick for the Bears?
90, 98%. I'd leave like a
Gotta
little
be.
bit of, yeah,
What's the little bit? The little bit of we're Bears fans, and
yeah,
like we
yeah.
drafted
That's
the
exactly what it
wrong
is.
player too many times.
Yeah, 100%. But it's going to be him.
It's got to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, this is the best situation for any rookie quarterback. I think it's really smart that we're seeing some of these prime positions, backup quarterback, backup tight end, where our offensive coordinator is familiar with these players. So then you have kind of like the player coach who's teaching the new system to all the players there. Especially the quarterback there. I mean, he's not the biggest name, but Brett Ripon, under Shane Waldron, knows the system, knows that he's not a threat to Caleb Williams at all, but he's going to be able to teach him. He's going to be his buddy. They're going to link up right away and start like working out and talking about the playbook. So that's great to see. And, just gearing up for the draft. We don't have a lot of picks. We know Poles notoriously likes to trade back for some of these picks. So I wouldn't be surprised with that 9 pick possibly trading back unless, their player falls to them, which I don't know. It's so un-Bears like, but if we go Caleb 1 and one of those receivers, obviously I don't think Harrison will be there, but if Roma Dunze is there,
Yeah. Him or Neighbors at 9 would
yeah,
be awesome.
it would be awesome. But you know what he's going to do? In my heart, I think he's going to draft another offensive lineman. I really do.
I like Joe Alt a lot.
Yeah.
So I would love for him to take him too. That would be great. But I want to go back to last year. And I think at least I was giving a little bit of shit to Ryan Poles for not taking Jalen Carter because I thought it was kind of a scared move.
Behavior issues.
But if you look at it now, he got an extra 4th round pick for moving back a spot, got the best right tackle, the best rookie offensive lineman by grades, PFF grades this last season, got the best lineman in the draft, and then also picked up the 4th round pick, which he traded for Keenan Allen now. Mm-hmm. So Keenan Allen, Darnell Wright, or Jalen Carter, I mean, I'll take the 2 players instead of the 1, though Carter did look really good. But
yeah, looked really good on an amazing defense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he had a lot of support, but yeah, he does look pretty nasty. But it's a weird feeling, going into a free agency, and a lot of Bears were clamoring for a lot of moves early, and we didn't make a lot of moves early. But we continue to make moves every like 3rd or 4th day here and there, and then drop some of those bombshells like the Keenan Allen and the Justin Fields trade. But I mean, you look at this roster and you're feeling pretty confident. But the division is also pretty good. It's going to be a fun season watching the NFC North play each other, because those are all pretty good football teams going back and forth at each other. And the Bears right now are prime and ascending as one of the young talented teams in the NFL. And if you look at the contracts, it kind of says that like all these contracts are 2 to 3 years. And, Caleb Williams is going to be on that rookie contract. And you're just going to continue to see players being added during this like 2 to 3 year window before we have to sign if Caleb, plays like he should, before we have to sign our quarterback to an extension. So like that's the window. You're going to start seeing a lot more players in that window before his second contract.
Yeah, for sure. And going back to Keenan Allen, I mean, he's somebody that says he's open to signing for another 2 years, right? So it'd be great to have him for a couple more years. And the Bears weren't the only team in on him either. I mean, I was reading Houston offered a 3rd round pick in next year's draft along with a pick swap. And the Bears got him for, this year's 4th. So, I mean, there was some teams vying for Keenan Allen, and rightfully so. He's one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. And
Chargers fans were bummed. And I work with a couple of them. They were pretty upset that he's gone. And
it's the only team he's played for.
It's the only team he's
Yeah.
played for. I think the rumors came out that they went to him and asked if he would take a pay cut, and he said no.
After his best year, yeah.
After his career year, and he said no. So then they went ahead and shipped him up because they're kind of retooling and rebuilding that roster because Harbaugh's in there and he wants his style of football. I don't know. Alshon Jeffrey and Brandon Marshall are the last time we had like an air attack with two pretty good receivers. This is better, yeah.
Oh man, I don't want to jinx it. I don't want to jinx it already, but yeah, I think so. I would put these two up against those two for sure. Back in the day, I mean, those two in their prime were pretty great. I don't want to say this and then
that was like
somebody tears their ACL
in the
off season, but I mean, this is probably the best duo that we've ever seen.
And I think we're going to continue to add to that offense, whether it be in the line or I definitely think there needs to be some skill players at it. I don't think Tyler Scott's going to be our third receiver, the second year man out of Cincinnati. I don't think that's going to work.
Yeah, or Dante Pettis or who they re-signed to, but
that's a special team signing.
Yeah. So I think they'll bring somebody else in. This draft's supposedly loaded with wide receivers. We know those top three neighbors, Odunze and Marvin Harrison, but there's other guys down the line. Yeah. And so, if he trades back,
who's the one guy I like? Keon Coleman. I think the drill in which it's the gauntlet drill. So if the combine, if you watch it, it's when the receivers run across from sideline to sideline where there are people throwing them the ball from different directions. And they're just like straight line, turn, catch, straight line, turn, catch kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's the gauntlet drill. And what it does is it basically shows you how confident a receiver is in their hands, because the faster you run it, the less time you're doing to slow down and catch the ball. And I think last year's draft, the top scorer in that time slot was Puka Nacua. He did it the fastest. Rams drafted him, and he absolutely, blew the roof off of that stadium last year with his production. Keon Coleman is the kid who did the best this year in that drill. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe Bears trade, move down, draft Lyman in that first pick, and then you look at a Keon Coleman in the second or third round.
Interesting. Didn't know that about Coleman. So that's, and I honestly, I didn't really know that about that drill. I thought it was more of like, are they catching the ball too close to their body? Is it further away? And maybe they look at that too, but
you can look at a bunch of things, but it's definitely the fastest time is the person that's what the scouts would say, right? The person who's most confident in their hands because they're not slowing down to catch the ball. They're just catching, dropping, and going.
Yeah.
And that's kind of Puka. If you remember watching his games, you would always just catch it, turn, and go, right? It was a yak machine.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, we'll keep talking about the Bears as we get closer to the draft. I mean, I'm pumped. It
is exciting.
It's super exciting. Super exciting draft.
Buy a new Bears hat.
Yeah.
Up the merch.
Get the Caleb Williams jersey on
the order. The number, right? Isn't that the thing? He wears 13. Keenan Allen wears 13. Who's going to wear 13?
Alan said he's trying to get there, and Tyler Scott actually already wears it. So
he's giving that up.
So we'll see if I think Keenan Allen's going to end up with it, and I think Caleb will pick a different number. That's my bet.
It'd be kind of cool if Caleb goes 1 and Keenan Allen goes 3, so they're both 13, and that connection would be like the 13 connection. I don't know. It'd be kind of cool.
All right. So what grade are you giving polls so far?
So far, I'd give him a B plus. I don't want to give him an A because I feel like there are still some other signings and some big splashes, especially with the budget that he has. We got some of the highest cap room in the league. But I do like his approach. I like his approach to where it's not winning free agency isn't important, where I think a lot of fans wanted us to sign like every person in free agency. And I think we've seen that in years past where the team that kind of, spends all the money, gets all the high profile names, it doesn't often, come together. So I like the approach. I like the methodical approach. I like the smart signings. A lot of the offensive linemen that he signed can play multiple positions. So you're kind of just adding depth there because we know offensive linemen tend to, every game is just a battle. So there's injuries nonstop on that offensive line. Yeah, I like it. He's helping his offensive coordinator with signing the back players that have been on his playbook with Ripon, the backup quarterback, and Gerald Everett, the tight end. The DeAndre Swift was a little strange to me. Like, that's not something that was on my radar, but the more I think about it, the more I like it. He's obviously an out of the backfield pass catcher. And, we still have our running backs that we had, Roshan Johnson and Khalil Herbert. So those are a little more, north to south runners, especially Roshan. He's kind of just like puts his head down and goes. So it's nice to have that change of pace, a little scat back that can do fun things out of the backfield. He reminds me of like Reggie Bush in his heyday, the way he can kind of catch it and make a play out of nothing. I like it. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, Swift, just to touch on him real quick, he, to me, like if you have a 2-minute drill, like that's a great running back to have. Somebody that can just catch some check downs. He can, do some things out of the backfield. Electric. Yeah, he's electric. Great to have. And then, he's not the best pass blocker. So you still have Roshan, who can do that. And Herbert, like you said, it's a good trio.
What's your grade?
I'm gonna give him an A-. I'm pretty up there with you. There was a couple players that I was, something for Danielle Hunter, maybe a splash, for a defensive line.
I think, just a defensive end, right? I think Jadeveon Clowney, Danielle Hunter, like one of those defensive ends that we want it.
We got to find somebody to pair up with Sweat. That's, he's got some draft capital though now to do it. And I think by the end of this offseason, we're going to be saying A+ for sure. But pre-Caleb Williams, pre-draft, A-.
His pro day, his pro days this week. I'm excited. Caleb Williams' pro day.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's going to be, but I know that everyone gives their take on him, and we can move on after this. I like the way he carries himself. I like the way he handled the combine. A lot of people are like, put him out there, let him do all the drills and everything. He doesn't have to. There's other players that didn't too, and nobody's getting the scrutinized as much as Caleb is because, he is the presumed number one pick. So the spotlight's on him, all the attention's on him, and I think he's handling it pretty well. He's doing his own thing, which I like. It just shows confidence that he's like,
seems like a very smart guy in that way, right? Like understands the business of it a little bit more than a lot of players have. And I think these guys coming in now that have been making business decisions, like we talked about, I think a couple episodes ago, they've been making business decisions for years now. Yeah. And there was an interesting thing that I heard when I was watching the QB Room. I don't know if you've ever seen that with Jordan Palmer and who's the other guy? Kyle Allen, I think. They're both like back quarterbacks in the NFL or whatever. And the thing that they were talking about that I haven't heard anybody else say was that, quarterbacks in high school and college, like you're trying to put stuff on tape, right? That's what people are going to see. It's the highlights. So are you hitting those dink and dunk 5-10 yard plays? Or are you running around a little bit and trying to make that splash throw, trying to throw that one 40 yards in the end zone, back corner? Like I don't know that they're thinking about that in the moment, but that's sometimes the way that players are playing because they're being told you need to put stuff on tape. You need to have these highlights. Right. That's what's going to get you to college and a good school, right? That's what's going to get you to be a top 5 recruit or whatever. And then when you're in college, that's what's going to get you into the draft because people want to know what is your ceiling? What can you do? And if you're not pushing it, and making those big plays, is anyone even going to know that you can do it? So I thought that was really interesting that, we've talked about them making business decisions like financially and, with him at the combine, not wanting to give everyone his medicals and all these other kind of things. But maybe he was trying to do too much because like that's what he was a little bit hardwired to do for the last, 6 years, where he's trying to put stuff on tape and show everyone like, this is who I can be. This is who I am. Every single play when, in the NFL, he's going to have to adjust a little bit and actually hit those little 5-10 yard plays. So I don't know. I thought that was interesting, but I'm excited for him. I think he looks really, really good. Keeps his head downfield. I think he's a great passer. I think, he's going to be able to sustain 2 top end wide receivers. Something that we didn't think Fields could do.
Yeah. It sounds so meatball-y, right? But he's just got the it factor, he walks in the room and everyone knows who he is. He's going to walk into the locker room and everyone's going to be like that. Yeah, we got that guy. That guy's our guy, and it's the same kind of presence that, Aaron Rodgers probably has when he walks into the room, or Tom Brady, Peyton Manning. Like that guy walks in, you're like, all right, yeah, no matter what, we're going to be in games because that's our quarterback. Sure,
Joe
he's gonna have
Burrow.
to. He's gonna have to
Yeah.
learn some. Yeah, right. Like Joe Burrow, the way he kind of walks into a stadium, he's got his fit on and everything. Like, yeah, the team knows, right? He's gonna have some like learning curves here and there and some bumps in the road. But man, that arm talent and the way he can kind of make something out of nothing, and the roster that's already in place, go Bears.
Playoffs year one. That's what
I think so, man.
I think so too.
I
The way
think
this roster
so.
looks.
I think so. It's gonna be wild. Absolutely wild. We haven't had a team like this in a long, long time, Evan.
Yeah. And last thing, I'm just sick of talking about the stadium thing. Just tell me when it's over, where they're going.
Yeah.
I don't care anymore.
Just put a shovel in the ground and tell me where it's being built.
Yeah. March Madness is upon us, Dan. Do you fill your bracket out? I mean, you run the bracket,
Yeah, I run our
friends,
bracket. It should be pretty good this year. I feel like I got a lot of people. I looked today. We almost around 20 people already have filled it out. College basketball to me though, like I used to be obsessed with college basketball when I was younger. I used to love the rivalries. I used to love the big games on ESPN. But I mean, I sound so old where it's like, the transfer rules and, the NILs, it's just kind of ruining it for me because players are getting up and leaving or I don't know. So
unionizing.
yeah,
right?
yeah. With that being said, I haven't watched a lot of college basketball, but there are some teams that I really like because I do tend to watch regional basketball here in San Diego. That would be like the West Coast Conference, which Gonzaga plays in, University of San Diego plays in, St. Mary's. So St. Mary's and Gonzaga are both in it this year. Everyone knows Gonzaga. Probably not a lot of people know St. Mary's. St. Mary's won the conference this year. That team's awesome. They're just really, really sound. I really like them in the tournament this year.
Patino's the coach there, isn't he?
No. St. John's is Patino.
St. John's.
Yeah. That's New York. St. Mary's is out here in California, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I know UConn is the heavy favorite. A lot of people are going to look at them. Houston with Sampson as their coach. They've been kind of, for the last 3 years now, a number one team here and there. They got a player, their point guard, I forget his name. He's hit a lot of clutch baskets this year. So I like them. I really like the upset over Wisconsin. I think it's what's the school's name that's playing Wisconsin in the first round? It's like not St. John's. It's like William and Mary. It's like one of those schools where it's like 3 names or something. But I looked at their record and they're like 30-2. Like they've just had an insane season. I like that upset when I was filling out my bracket. I like Marquette a lot just because I like Shaka Smart and I like tournament defense. He runs that diamond full court press where the guy's right up on the ball and they try to trap corners right on the inbounds. And in a tournament play, if you can get your defense rattling some teams early, right, that's where you're really going to win the game. So I like Marquette in that a lot. I love Shaka Smart as a coach. I think I have my winner as UConn. I do think I like them repeating. Dan Hurley is just awesome coach. He's just a hard ass. He like wants to fight people in the stands for his players. So I really like that. U of I too. Illinois should be a fun team to watch. I think they got the 3 seed. They got a lot of guys. They're real scrappy. I think that's Brad Underwood's like terms, like everyday guys kind of thing, where they just kind of show up every single game. And Purdue, I think, is going to be an early out. I do. I think
lost to U of I in the Big Ten tourney, right?
Yeah, and like Zach Edey is pretty huge and dominant, but it's also your team becomes very one note with him. And I think if you just like think about March Madness and teams that win and move on, it's teams that just catch fire, right? And are just, launching threes, or like a player just is playing out of his mind. And it's not until the later rounds where it really slows down and gets to that kind of basketball. So
yeah, you can't put everything on.
You got to watch out.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
you got to be able to shoot it.
Early rounds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's like James Madison is the team that's playing Wisconsin or something like that.
Did you
Madison.
Find it? Yep.
Yeah,
James Madison.
Yeah. I like that upset.
It's a 12-5. That's just the classic upset pick right there, the 12-5.
But I love March Madness, man. I can't wait.
I've done limited research on this. I also picked UConn, but I know North Carolina is really good too, so I could see them coming out of that side. That whole bottom right corner, I like Gonzaga going pretty far. I'm with you. I think Purdue is going to win.
Another team, game. Another team I really like is out of the Missouri Valley. I like Drake. I think they're going to be pretty good. I think they've won their last 5. They're going in on a win streak while being one of the best teams in the conference as well. So I like them making an upset.
All right, there you go, man. March
None of
Madness
that's
is
going to
fun,
happen,
though.
though. None of that's going to happen.
None of it's going to
though,
happen. Yeah, I mean, you could do all the research in the world, but it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
I just want somebody to get a perfect bracket. I don't think that's ever happened.
Isn't it like Warren Buffett will like give you $1 million if you have a perfect bracket every year?
It's like 1 in 7 billion or something odds that you can do it. So
great. I love it. It's the best thing of college sports, right?
The best,
I mean,
The
I mean,
best,
college football is cool and the
for
playoffs
sure.
are cool, but like March Madness in and of itself is its own little thing.
Yeah, it's just the amount of teams that are in this too. Like they're trying to make college football like this. I think they're expanding it, the college football playoff, but it's not going to be, this many games, this many teams, the upsets.
The pace of the gaming is just different too, man. That second half of a first round upset, everyone's at work and they have it on the computer, right? Like we're not, no need to lie here, but like the second half of a first round upset brewing with like 5 minutes to go. And like, is this, 15? Are they going to do it? Are they going to do it? And they storm the court and they upset the team. Like, did you have Oral Roberts beating this? No. It's the best.
Oh man, makes me want to pick South Dakota State right now. 15 over the 2.
The old Jackrabbits.
He said that. Yeah. Just because he said that. All right. That's
something like that's going to happen though,
Yeah.
You think you're doing the smart thing by picking the higher seeds, but every year a team falls.
Yeah, starts on Thursday. It looks like round 1, March 21st. So
yep,
got a little bit of time here. Get your brackets in. And Cubs opening day right around the corner. It's the 28th. MLB season kicks off on the 20th. Tomorrow.
We did our fantasy draft.
Yeah,
ready to go.
How do you feel about your squad they ended up with?
I like it. I went a little bit away from my usual. I feel like usually I try to get like the up and comers a lot, and I get ripped on it a lot for like drafting the young kids. But this year I kind of just went for solid players. Doesn't matter depending on age. I think I drafted like Nolan Arenado, who's pretty up there. I went pitching pretty heavy because my keepers were bats and fielders. So I like it. I'm not like blown up. There's no one on my team that I love, which I hate. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Which is probably a good thing. My team's probably going to be pretty good if I don't like anybody on it.
That's hilarious. Yeah. Well, pitching in general is tough. I think, you went top heavy pitching with Corbin Burns, who I think is really the only like top tier pitcher that I would trust in a draft. And from there, it's like, all the big time names are hurt. Kershaw's out, Verlander, Scherzer, Garrett Cole, Alcantara, DeGrom, like everybody is injured right now. So I think it's going to be kind of a crapshoot from a pitching standpoint for everybody, whether you took somebody early or late, but getting a solid guy like Burns, I think you'll be fine. But yeah, interesting draft. I was a big fan of it too. I like my team. Like what I ended up with.
Who do you like the most?
Favorite player I have on my team?
Yeah.
I like Bobby Miller a lot. I think he's going to be awesome.
Everyone's high on him. You like him because every article's high on him.
I had him all last year, so I saw how good he was, but I was just like, man, is he going to get enough innings? Are they going to, push him a little bit this year? And I think hopefully they will with like Kershaw being out and stuff, and they need the arms. Like, I think they're going to let him loose. Could be a top end starter for the best team in baseball. I don't know.
Could be.
Let's see.
Could be. Yeah.
So excited for him for sure. But that actually, you know what? St. Patrick's Day was the other day. Yeah. So I got a little fast fact for you.
Bring back the fast fact.
Let's do it. Lagunitas, they've got locations in California and Chicago, right? And so those two spots both have legalized cannabis, and Lagunitas actually has longstanding association with cannabis. So it's actually caused them a little bit of legal problems in the past. They've had some names associated with the plant, things like that. But on St. Patrick's Day specifically, way back in 2005, the California Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control, I didn't even know that was a thing, raided a weekly tasting party at the brewery to investigate alleged cannabis dealing by employees. So this is back in the kind of the early days of Lagunitas. Officers staked out the brewery for 2 months to observe people consuming cannabis on the premises. No charges were filed, but McGee, the owner back in the day, admits no one was willing to sell it to them, but everyone was willing to give it to them for free. So I thought that was interesting that they had the cops staking out the premises, trying to buy some marijuana off them, but ultimately found him in violation of section 24-200, something like that, of the California code. But they had some run-ins. They had some undercover cops, with the little fake mustaches on, staking
outlaws.
out the premises back on St. Patrick's Day.
So, it was on St. Patrick's Day?
It was on St. Patrick's Day. Yeah,
okay.
they were trying to catch them. So that's the little tie-in there. But that's been our show. Go Caleb Williams.
Yep.
Thanks again for joining us today. For Dan
QB1.
Slowick, I'm Evan Bierman. You've been listening to the Domestic Draft Podcast. If you're listening on Spotify, don't forget to rate the show. You can find us on Twitter at Domestic Draft, on Instagram at Domestic Draft Podcast. Our website is domesticdraft.com, and you can watch the show on YouTube. Just search up Domestic Draft and drop us a sub. Thanks again for listening. Cheers.
Cheers.